Hi, this is The World on Bernama TV. I'm Jason Wee. 18th December every year is International Migrants Day, a time to reflect on the millions of people who leave home in search of safety, dignity, and opportunity. With me are HEBA Abdul-Latif, IOM's Chief of Mission to Malaysia, and FARAH Abdul Hamid, IOM's National Project Officer for Counter-Trafficking. Thanks so much for being with me today and welcome to the show. I want to start off maybe with HEBA. Let's get to you first. Can you share the history and main mission for IOM today? And why is, I think, for today, International Migrants Day so important and significant?
Well, thank you so much for having us today, Jason, and thank you for sharing this day with us. Today we're celebrating, every year IOM decides on a theme for International Migrants Day, and this year's theme is Migrate Story, Cultures and Development, which really defines how do we see migrants across the world through their cultural perspective, but what do they also bring to economic development? IOM is the UN Agency on Migration. We have been established since 1951 and became a UN agency in 2016. We work on policy through the Global Compact on Migration, which is a government-led framework. And actually next year is the 4-year review, which we call the International Migration Review Forum, where governments get together to review progress on migration governance and policies. We work very closely here with the government of Malaysia, and they have been extremely helpful in partnering with us on many different issues. In Malaysia specifically, we work on labor migration, we work on counter-trafficking, we work on immigration, supporting immigration. We of course mainly started here working on resettlement of refugees, which we continue to do. We have also introduced recently looking at labor migration pathways, complementary pathways to refugees, where we kind of link them to work in other countries to make sure to help them resettle in other countries through job placements. And finally, we also have a small program which HANI actually leads on, which is our Assistant Voluntary Return Reintegration Program, where migrants who are stranded and extremely vulnerable, especially if they're victims of trafficking, children and women who want to go back to their home country that are not refugees, we provide them with assistance to go home. So This is in a nutshell what we do.
Thanks, HEBA. And maybe I want to focus in on trafficking and human trafficking specifically. Many people know that Malaysia sometimes is referred to as a hub for human trafficking as well. Hani, I want to go to you. According to standards, how many types of trafficking exist, and what do you think are the most common ones that happen in Malaysia?
Okay, so before I explain about the types of or the standard of the human trafficking, maybe I should define first what is the human trafficking according to legal frameworks, either international or national standards. So basically, trafficking defined by the law is basically when a person refers to any act of recruiting, transporting, maintaining persons, for the purpose of exploitations using several means such as by threatening, deceptions. So that's the definition of the trafficking. So basically in international or even in Malaysia, there are several types of trafficking, such as for the purpose of sexual exploitations, forced labor, and even for the child marriage. So those are some of the type of trafficking, yes.
Right, and my understanding is that really trafficking can happen to any one of us, and sometimes it happens right underneath our noses that we don't realize. For any one of you, maybe, HEBA, are there misconceptions about trafficking that we should be aware of, and more importantly, should the public know?
I think the main misconception is that it's just a legal issue. Protection of victims of trafficking is the responsibility of everyone. You can be walking in the street and you can identify a victim of trafficking. You need to know who to refer them to for support, whether it's health, whether it's shelter, whether it's their embassy, but you need to be informed of that. And you need to be also empathetic to their needs, because sometimes we see people and we say, look, they're just, they're just abusing their situation, or they've been in, but really it's a very individual experience, and it can happen to anyone at any time. A lot of people go to different countries with legal contracts. They think they have a job, but that quickly turns into a very bad human trafficking situation.
And we've all also heard the cases of Malaysians going to Cambodia thinking they're on a legitimate contract, and it turns out to be really much a human trafficking operation.
Maybe to add also, right? One of the misconceptions that always happen with regards to human trafficking is that trafficking always happen between countries to countries. For example, Malaysian being trafficked overseas. But actually trafficking also happen among, I mean, like between district to district or village to village. Like recently, even in Malaysia, like we have a victim of trafficking involving maybe one state of being trafficked to another state. So it also happened in that way. So yeah, that's what another things that everyone should aware of.
And across all these cases, which groups do you think are most vulnerable or most risk for human trafficking? Is it women? Is it children? And especially in the Malaysian context, who is at the highest risk level that we should be aware of?
Okay, first of all, for my opinion is the children is the most prone to being trafficked, because even according to the law itself, in order to identify them as a victim of trafficking, they only need to prove two elements, which is the means and the purpose, but not the act and the purpose, but not the means. So it shows that how vulnerable this category of human to become a victim of trafficking. Another thing is that actually we can't really like specifically determine who is the most vulnerable, because trend keep changing. Like previously, for example, we know that the most prone to be human trafficking is those who has maybe from low income background or maybe low education background. But now this trend has been changing. There are a lot of other people, such as from those who has high education background, become a victim of trafficking also.
I mean, that's quite ridiculous to think about, even that high educated individuals are able to fall for what I'm assuming are elaborate schemes. Do you have a story, or can you tell me more a bit about how traffickers lure victims into this problem?
We have some cases where I am actually involved in saving Malaysian being returned to under assisted voluntary return that HEBA just mentioned just now. He actually has high education background. He got masters, but because at that time he was following his partner. His partner is actually from Philippines. So, and then after that, the moment he arrived in another country, and then suddenly he got kidnapped. So that's how, and then being forced into forced criminality activities. So actually also, like this is also one of the trend that we also realize. Sometimes those victims are being put into that situation by the people they know actually. Yeah. If you see the news where government release, some of them actually being lured into forced criminality because they were brought by their partners, friends, or even relatives. Yeah.
I guess, and moving to HEBA, I also want to touch on this, right? Because these are clearly trends and stories we've heard in the region. Is that the same? Is the same thing happening across the world, or are there significant differences that we should be aware of?
Okay, let me give you a number. As per UNODC report, since 2023, there's 202,000 detected victims of trafficking, and that is detected. We don't even know those that go through the detected means they've gone through some kind of identification and support. I've worked on trafficking, and I'm in my region in MENA, the Middle East and North Africa. I've worked on it in the Horn of Africa. The main entry point when you work on trafficking is looking at the profiles, is doing a study to see what are the main profiles of trafficking in each country or region. And of course, you need to look at it from a regional perspective, because movement is quite fluid when it comes to trafficking, and in many cases connected to smuggling. So in a lot of countries, you'll see a lot of the traffic cases start out as a smuggling case, where they've paid a smuggler to help them cross the border, but the smuggler has sold them to a trafficker in between, who starts to exploit them and exploit their parents, and then the vicious cycle begins. So every situation has a different context, and you really need to look at it. Another way to look at it is through the cases. Malaysia has a very well-developed law on counter-trafficking, but looking at the cases that have been prosecuted and trying to assess them and analyze them to see, and that will give you a better picture of what are the main trends, where do we see them coming from, and so on.
And I guess within the past year, I mean, we also know that, for example, the Malaysian victims who went to Cambodia, they were lured on social media. How do you think technology really has changed how traffickers operate, or is there a way that the public can identify or at least tell that it's a trafficking operation, in your opinion?
Usually, as you know that, if you see like how we determine what is the meaning of trafficking, like first there must be the act of transferring. Okay, so even though that we are using the cyber the technology, because first the act of recruiting. So they're recruiting those people using the technology.
Maybe WhatsApp messages,
WhatsApp
it might be Facebook messages.
Yes. And then you know that sometimes, for example, I'm looking for a job. So based on those media, social and everything, so I just like register for the link. And then after that, the movement, the means, how they use deception. They said, oh, we have this job maybe in India, for example. And then after that being there, and then suddenly only they realized that it's actually a deception and they were forced into another exploitation. Yeah.
Right. And maybe I want to focus in on IOM's work, right? Because oftentimes these are victims who get placed into positions where they don't have many resources to get out of it. How does IOM work with Malaysian authorities or NGOs and local communities to prevent these trafficking cases from happening? And more importantly, I guess, supporting the victims who fell into these situations?
Okay, so for IOM Malaysia, we work closely with the governments, definitely. So some of the ministry that we work closely with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Home Affairs, and also enforcement agencies such as Royal Malaysian Police, Immigration, and also Prison Department. So we provide capacity buildings where we provide training for them, to, for example, victim identifications, and also first aid and mental health psychosocial service where they can provide support for the victim of trafficking. We also work closely with, of course, the CSOs in Malaysia. For example, like we provide a training for victim assistance specialists, where these victim assistance specialists always work closely with the victim of trafficking in order to provide them all the supports they needed. We also work closely with the consular, for example, with assisted voluntary return, where we work closely with them to provide support for the victim to return to their country. Yeah.
Right. And if I want to touch on the return, assistant voluntary return and reintegration, right? What are the main challenges have you observed when returnees go back to their home environments, especially coming from what I can only imagine to be quite a horrendous and torturous environment in your experience at IOM?
So AVRR is one of IOM's flagship programs. We've returned in 2023 over 56,000 migrants globally. The way we do it is from the minute we start the assessment and the interview. And the key word here is voluntary. This is someone who wants to go home for different reasons. They have not found a job, they are stranded, they want to go home. And then we take them through the process. There is support. We provide them with immediate support. Sometimes they need health, sometimes they need shelter, and so on. And we work closely with the government and with the consulate to make sure their paperwork moves through. At the same time, while we're doing that, and that's a very important part, is we're looking at the reintegration into their community. So when you start to plan the reintegration early on and to see what they're going to do, because a lot of them feel like it's a shame to go back, or feel that they're stigmatized. They have the burden of debt sometimes. They don't want to go home. So preparing them for that return and the reintegration into their community is a very key aspect, which takes a lot of the time for us before and sometimes we even provide them with trainings, whether before they leave or when they arrive, to be able to get some kind of income.
I want to zoom out a bit. I mean, IOM works across the world, right? Not just in Southeast Asia or Malaysia. There are so many crises around the world, as we know. It's in Bangladesh, in Gaza, in Sudan, in Ukraine, where so much of displacements have happened. How has IOM responded to these global emergencies? And for Malaysia and the region, what lessons do you think these emergencies that we can learn from?
Absolutely. I mean, under our emergency programming, we have wide operational footprint, especially, as you said, in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. In Gaza, we are providing shelter for the people there. We are working in Sudan with the affected populations. We're trying to provide, especially the internally displaced in Sudan due to the war there. And of course, we have the large-scale humanitarian operation in Ukraine. This part of our work is extremely humanitarian. It is very operational. It is based on the needs we see, and it is in coordination with other UN agencies too. So we work within the UN humanitarian framework, and that is how we deliver on our progress.
And on that point, I mean, you mentioned that you work on policy as well. I mean, the issue of displacement is that there are so many crises around the world, and it does feel like a river that keeps on flowing, and the humanitarian work sometimes can feel like we're putting a singular sandbag to stop a flood. I want to touch a bit on your policy work, and Hani, I want to go to you. What policy work at IOM would you be able to highlight, especially to solve the challenge of human trafficking more systematically, maybe be it in Malaysia or in the region?
Okay, so in Malaysia for counter-trafficking, under the leading of National Strategic Office of Anti-Trafficking, so we have National Action Plan where the government is preparing right now for 2026 to 2030. So IOM provide some technical advice to support for the government to build on that. So that's some of the policy that we are supporting.
And about what policy successes do you think IOM has really achieved that you can be really proud of in the past decade or so?
I've worked a lot on protection, the whole protection framework, and I think looking at establishing concrete and actionable referral mechanisms, whether it's for victims of trafficking or stranded migrants, where they are able to be provided with the services they need through a legal process that the government has positioned. The other one is also, I say, that policies and implementation of the policies where we're able to operationalize these policies and make it real and make it impact. Even if it's one case, sometimes we work and we support for 2 months. We will be working to support one case to help them go home. That for us is a great success because we have been able to help at least that person through our advocacy with the government, through our advocacy with the embassies, through our referral and our cases and our trust throughout the process, we're able to help someone, and that is key for us.
And so many attitudes, I think globally, not just in Malaysia but abroad, have a very sometimes negative view about migrants, thinking that this is purely voluntary. Sometimes they may be victims of human trafficking. Sometimes they are economic migrants. What really is something that Malaysians and I guess audiences all around the world need to understand when it comes to victims of human trafficking, in your opinion?
Okay, victim of trafficking, usually it happens most of the time they didn't realize they are victim of trafficking, because basically victim of trafficking, when they are decided to move, they just want to improve their life without knowing that they are going to be lied or being forced into that situation. So when they are stuck there, sometimes they don't know where to go, how to save themselves. So I hope that people can
HEBA, you've been in this industry for a long time.
Yes.
I'm sure you've come across people who view both migrants, I think more broadly, as a very clumped up category. What do you think is the main challenge in these conceptions, in negative conceptions across the world?
I think it's exactly as you said, they're all clumped up. Migration is people on the move, is opportunity, is economic development, is in many cases displaced, is cases of trafficking, is refugees. There are so many different profiles of people on the move. We have 281 million international migrants globally. These people are moving, most of them regularly, and supporting regular pathways is where we want to go, legal channels, the right way to move. But there are cases who fall through the cracks, and how to protect them. So I think if you want to, sometimes I feel like I want to put a QR question to everyone, define migration, and everybody will give you a different definition based on their own personal experience. Your brother might be living in another country working happily and doing great, and another one might be suffering due to some paperwork, due to some exploitation. So it is a journey, and people take it for opportunity, and IOM is there to support that it is orderly and beneficial to both the host country and the country of origin. So how do we see that in every single case? That's the key. So yeah, define migration, define it.
And I want to throw a bit of a curveball to both of you. Migration patterns have changed so drastically, even just within this past decade we've been in. What do you think are the biggest trends we'll observe in the next 5 years? And do you think we should be optimistic about the justice framework for migrants and victims of human trafficking come 2030, in your opinion?
Maybe I'll start globally. Yes, I think that looking at it from a more development perspective, migration is part of development. Labor migration, a lot of countries, it's just developing the policies that serve the economic development goals, but it is there, and I think that is a trend. Regular pathways, increasing regular pathways, whether for education, for work, and so on, that will help people move. And a lot of people want to move because they like to move, and that is also another opportunity, I think, for diversity and culture. As we said, celebrating International Migrants Day is about culture, and economic development, and how do we benefit from that?
Hani, do you agree? Are you optimistic, pessimistic about
totally
the trend
agree.
in 5
Somehow
years?
with the development of the media social and everything, people nowadays like knows what is happening outside. They see the different culture and everything. So I think everyone like very excited to move, like to see and experience that culture themselves. Yeah.
And given we have a bit of airtime left, what do you think Malaysians can do to contribute to supporting migrants and victims of trafficking? I mean, we all live in the studio here, we're in Kuala Lumpur, which is home to so many migrants as well. How can the average citizen really, in their own small way or big way, support the goals of better or more dignified migration?
I mean, first of all, within your community is really, again, looking at it with empathy and looking at it with understanding and trying to engage with people to see what you can gain, because there is a lot of gain by having different cultures and people around you. On a more practical level, IOM has launched the Islamic Philanthropy Fund, which supports our emergency, specifically our emergency, like in Gaza and in Bangladesh, our work there, but also victims of trafficking this year is the priority. So anybody who would like to support that, it is all within the framework of Islamic Sharia and has been given the right fatwas and works through the right kind of financial systems. And this is something very practical that IOM has launched globally. It's not just in Malaysia, and you can find it on our website.
Thanks, HEBA. And Hani, what about you? What can an average Malaysian citizen or anyone watching contribute to supporting migrants, in your opinion?
I hope like for the community level, they have more understanding of what is the victim of trafficking, so that the moment they see someone's facing or in that situation, they already know like this person is victim of trafficking, and then they can channel like the correct assistance to the person. Yeah.
I think maybe just to end on the last bit, maybe 1 minute from each of you. I mean, these challenges are insurmountable, and sometimes as with all resources, they are sometimes it's scarce. Sometimes governments don't contribute enough. Sometimes we don't have enough private philanthropists coming into the sector. What is really one thing you would like to change in the sector that would make your work more effective, more scalable, and I think more importantly, to really protect the victims that we want to ensure justice and protection for at the end of the day? Eva, in your opinion?
For victims of trafficking, I think, again, it is the idea that we provide them with the protection sphere, whether they have been going through a legal case or not, but creating a protection sphere for them where they have enough to survive and able to survive with dignity and able to make decisions on their future. And this is where the key is, because sometimes they're scared to take these decisions because they don't know. So give them all the opportunities and all the options so that they're able to make the right decision to go back to their normal life and be able to continue in a healthy manner.
Okay. To add on that also, I think maybe we should focus also on the prevention side, which government has been doing for such a long time. So we can also increase in that effort so that it's in line like to prevent and then to protect, for the victim of trafficking.
I think, there's so many things on the policy agenda.
Yes.
How can we make sure that this is a priority, especially for governments who don't necessarily see this, be it in Malaysia or be in the world? How do we make sure that it is seen as important, in your opinion, Hani? Maybe a last word from you.
Go ahead.
So, come again, your question.
Like, how do we make sure this is an urgent priority for governments?
Okay, because we see the trend has been changing. It's actually quite fast, the trend has been changing. So I think like everyone, even government and even partners, needs like to keep the trend and like to start truly understand what is happening. Yes.
Perfect. That's all the time we have left. This has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you, HEBA. Thank you, Hani. As we mark International Migrants Day, today's conversation reminds us that migration is not just about movement, it's about people, dignity, and shared responsibility. From preventing trafficking to supporting those displaced by global crises, meaningful change begins with awareness and compassion, as demonstrated by our great two guests today. Our thanks to International Organization for Migration for joining us, and to our viewers for staying informed and staying in solidarity with migrants everywhere. I'm Jason Wee. This has been The World on Bernama TV. Thanks for watching.